Fever, beset by major injury. Howard gets it in, but is knocked away by Lexie Hull. Hull with the...
Come on. That way, no, that way.
Picture this, a season hanging by a thread, a locker room patched together with tape and belief, and a franchise that hasn't felt the taste of a playoff series win in 10 long years. That's the weight the Indiana Fever carried into Atlanta for Game 3. Win, and you get to breathe. Lose, and it's silence, suitcases, and the sound of what-ifs. From the moment the ball went up, you could feel it.
Are on the doorstep of making the semifinals.
This wasn't just about a game. It was about dignity, memory, and a team deciding what their name stands for. They walked into a building that wanted them gone. The crowd had the kind of roar that makes your stomach bounce.
We got to come out and we've got to play with that sense of urgency. We've got to play with that hunger. A win or go home situation, there's desperation. And so it has to carry over. We're in the same situation. Our back is against the wall.
Atlanta felt comfortable. They were healthy, at home, and convinced the story would end here. Indiana, they came in with a roster that looked like an injury report had exploded. No Caitlin Clark on the floor, no Sophie Cunningham, depth players sidelined, a bench cobbled together by necessity and stubbornness, and yet nobody looked rattled. The Fever had been living in chaos for months. Chaos had stopped being a problem, it had become their routine. Kelsey Mitchell saw it first. The dream shaded right to trap her off every screen, loading bodies into her driving lanes like a traffic jam. It didn't matter. She came out firing, mixing crossovers with jab steps and those quick, mean bursts to the rim. Every time she got a half step, she turned that into 2 points or a hard foul. The more Atlanta overplayed her, the more she found quiet pockets of space and punished the gaps. She felt like the engine the Fever had waited a decade to trust. When Indiana needed a calm breath, Kelsey gave them oxygen. Across the paint, Aaliyah Boston did the heavy lifting no one brags about. It's one thing to score when your jumper is falling. It's another to wrestle for space against a bigger body and still find balance, touch, and timing in tight quarters. Boston looked like a veteran in a rookie's skin. Patient, strong, deliberate. She sealed early, demanded the ball late, and when the game asked for composure, she was the one who lowered her shoulders and created it. Every rebound came with a bruise. Every assist came from a heartbeat of stillness in traffic. She gave Indiana a center of gravity when the building tilted. And still, this never felt easy. The ghosts from Game 1 lingered. Those whistles that sent the Fever into a spiral. The technicals that flipped momentum. Those moments can live rent-free in a team's head. Indiana didn't pretend it didn't hurt. They simply refused to be defined by it. They took the same aggression that burned them and used it. Closeouts were sharper, hands were higher, rotations snapped like a rubber band. You could see it in how they talked to each other after every possession. No panic, just little corrections, small encouragements, the kind of language that says we trust us more than we fear them. Odyssey Sims changed the temperature the second she checked in. Some players manage the game. Sims provokes it. She poked at the Dream's defense, tested their balance, and when she found a soft spot, she attacked it again and again. Straight-line drives, hesitation bursts, a pull-up when the big sagged. And when she got hit, she smiled like she'd been expecting it all night. Those 8-second bursts where she turned a dead possession into a layup or free throws, those were the knife cuts that opened the game. Natasha Howard gave them the possessions that don't show up until you rewatch the film. Long rebounds that glanced off a fingertip, a chase-down contest that forced a kick-out, a slap at the ball that turned a sure layup into a jump ball. And in the middle of that grind, she found space to finish. Hard rolls, soft hands, and the kind of footwork that makes you forget she's working against size. Howard made bravery look ordinary. The game kept tightening. Every time Indiana made a push, Atlanta answered with something quick and loud. A corner three, a backdoor cut, a whistle that sliced momentum in half. That's what elimination does. It compresses time. Every possession felt like a verdict. And this is where the Fever were different than the teams of the last decade. They didn't chase the game. They kept dragging it to their pace. They got 2 feet in the paint. They made the extra pass. They defended without reaching. Patience is a weapon in these moments. Indiana wielded it with steady hands. And then there's Lexie Hull. Nights like this can swallow a shooter whole. The rim shrinks. The ball feels like a brick. The more you want it, the heavier it gets. Lexie felt all of that. Open looks wouldn't drop. Good form. Clean release, no reward. But here's the part that matters. She never stopped defending. She slid, recovered, talked, and kept her body between the ball and hope. Coaches love that. Teammates feel it. Fans don't always notice it until it turns into everything. Late in the fourth, the game was wobbling. Atlanta had the crowd. Indiana had poise and a pulse. Mitchell knifed into the lane again, drew help and kicked. The ball swung, hands hot potatoed along the arc, and suddenly it found Lexi, alone, top of the key. All the misses in the world don't matter when your feet are right and your heart is honest. She let it go. Net. The sound wasn't loud, but it was final. It didn't end the game, but it changed its shape. You could see Atlanta feel it. Now the clock was a weight. Every second carried a story. Indiana didn't call timeout on the next touch. They trusted what had carried them this far. Habits, timing, the simple friendship of players who've spent more time together than they have with their families. Boston ducked in, got position, and the ball went where it had been destined to go all night, into her hands with traffic clawing at her shoulders. She finished through contact with the kind of softness you only learn after getting hit 1,000 times. Indiana up 1. The building gasped. 7-ish seconds to go. Atlanta to inbound. A season hanging on a pass. This is where fear can creep in, the part of your brain that whispers, don't be the one who gets beat. Lexi didn't hear that voice. She watched eyes. She timed footsteps. She read the angle before it existed. The pass left the fingertips, and she was already moving. Clean jump, clean catch, no foul. All instinct, all nerve. In a game that had asked her to endure every miss, she took the one thing Atlanta couldn't afford to give, their last possession. Steal. Pandemonium. If you've ever been in a game like that, you know what the world sounds like for the next 5 seconds. It isn't just noise, it's static. It's laughter. It's teammates yelling words they won't remember. It's silence inside your chest while your feet move on their own. Odyssey Sims put the final fingerprints on it at the line, and then the horn released 10 years. 10 years of almosts. 10 years of next times. 10 years of remembering Tamika catchings and wondering when the fever would have a night that mattered again. All of it cracked, and light came through. On the court, players jumped into each other's arms like kids. On the bench, towels went flying. In the stands, a pocket of traveling Fever fans hugged strangers. In a city far away, people in Indiana looked at each other and said, "We're back." Inside the locker room, emotions live with no filter. Kelsey Mitchell didn't try to be cool about it. She hugged and laughed and let herself beam. She's carried seasons like a backpack before. This time she shared the weight and shared the glory. Aaliyah Boston sat and let the tears do the talking. Happy tears finally. Natasha Howard grinned like she'd been telling people all season this would happen. Odyssey Sims, mid-season pickup, instant heartbeat, looked like she was home. Caitlin Clark was there the entire time. Not the star on the floor, but the engine on the sideline. She cheered like she was trying to will breath into every possession. After the game, she blasted her pride in all caps, and you could feel that it wasn't just social media. It was a leader loving her team, the kind of bond that doesn't show up in stats and still wins you games. You can lift a franchise with points. You can also lift it with presence. What makes this special isn't that Indiana upset someone in a single night. It's that they stared at every reason to fold: injuries, calls going the other way, the pressure of history. And they didn't. They didn't wait for a hero to save them. They built one, together, possession by possession. They trusted that if Kelsey kept cutting, if Aaliyah kept sealing, if Odyssey kept slashing, if Natasha kept grinding, if Lexi kept believing, the game would tilt. And when it tilted, they were ready to push. Here's the part that sneaks up on you. This win wasn't shiny. It was gritty. It was built on closeouts and boxouts, on taking a hit and talking on defense, on lifting a teammate who just missed, and then hitting her on the next swing because trust says try again. It's easy to love the highlights. Mitchell's burst, Boston's touch, Lexi's steal. But the soul of this night was the little things. The second effort after a missed blockout. The rotation that erased a corner three, the foul you didn't commit when your instincts begged for a swipe. That's how droughts end, not with a firework, but with a match you keep lit through wind. Now comes the hard truth, and the best part, the next opponent doesn't care about your moment. The Aces are a machine. Champions don't blink. They test your habits at every level. Can you defend for 24 seconds? Can you rebound through hands? Can you score when the first read is gone? Can you stay together when runs stack against you? That's the exam waiting on the other side of joy. And still, there's a reason to believe. Teams that win like this don't forget how. They remember the feel of together. They remember that 7 seconds is enough time to change a season. They remember that belief is contagious. There will be adjustments. There always are. Indiana will have to live in the details again. They'll need Kelsey to be both scorer and decoy, to use the gravity she's earned to free others. They'll need Aaliyah to anchor the paint with clean verticality and early seals that turn late clock prayers into high-percentage looks. They'll need Odyssey's rim pressure to crack the shell. They'll need Natasha to stop runs before they start with energy plays that don't show up on graphics. They'll need role players to be loud in small ways. Hit one shot, take one charge, set the best screen of the night. And they'll need Lexie to hold on to the memory of how it felt to win a game with her hands, so that the next open look feels light again. What if this wasn't a spark at all? What if it was ignition? You can't fake the kind of trust we just watched. You earn it through setbacks and got to have it possessions, and the humility to play your role when your shot won't fall. This group learned those things the hard way. They learned them on nights when the headlines went to someone else, and they showed up anyway. That's why this win feels bigger than a box score. It feels like a team discovering its voice. And here's a thought that should make every opponent a little uneasy. Confidence multiplies faster than doubt. When a team finds proof of who they are under pressure, it doesn't disappear the next series. It deepens. It makes your next rotation a little quicker, your next shot a little freer, your next huddle a little calmer. Indiana just found proof. They found it in a layup through contact, in a three when the ball begged to be heavy, in a steal that turned a decade into confetti. If you've been riding with the fever through the lean years, you didn't imagine that feeling, you earned it too. The nights you watched because you loved the name on the front of the jersey, not the record underneath. The comments you left when no one else was paying attention. The patience you kept when the world told you to pick a different team. That loyalty met the right moment, and together you walked out of Atlanta with a memory that will live for a very long time. So say it with your chest. They're back. Not because of a viral clip or a lucky whistle, because they did the work. Because they found a way when every arrow pointed the other direction. Because one player stayed ready when her shot betrayed her, and then trusted her instincts when the game begged for courage. Because leaders led, role players starred in their roles, and a team that had been knocked to the floor all season stood up taller than ever. Breathe it in. Let the smile happen, then look ahead. There's more to do, more to prove, and a bigger mountain to climb. But the climb is different when you finally believe your feet belong on the path. The Indiana Fever earned that belief. They earned it the hard way, the honest way, the way that sticks. If you felt any of that, if you shouted at your screen, if you whispered please on that last inbound, you know exactly why this matters. Drop a heart for the Fever. Tell me the moment that made you jump. And stick around. Because if this is who they are now, the best part of this story might be the part we haven't seen yet. The thing about sports is that they don't just happen in the arena. They happen in the history books, in the chatter at barbershops, in family living rooms where jerseys hang from hooks, and kids pretend they're the ones hitting that last shot. For the Indiana Fever, this wasn't just a Game 3 win. It was a generational reset. Think about it. The last time this franchise won a playoff series, Tamika Catchings was still the heartbeat, the kind of player who could will a team into relevance with grit alone. Since then, years of frustration. Coaches shuffled, stars came and went, attendance dipped, and every time the postseason rolled around, Indiana was watching from the sidelines. Fans held on to memories instead of moments. That drought wasn't just a stat, it was a scar. So when Lexie Hull lunged for that steal, it wasn't just about securing possession. It was about ripping away a decade of disappointment and saying, not anymore. It was about every fan who had worn a Fever jersey in empty arenas, every little kid who had to listen to people say Indiana basketball was dead, every veteran player who swallowed another losing season and still showed up ready to work. That's why the celebration looked different. That's why tears ran so freely. This wasn't a surprise party. It was a release. The bench told its own story too. Brianna Turner, a player who isn't often in highlight reels, roared like she just hit a game winner. Ariel Powers was diving on the floor for loose balls as if each possession held her career inside it. When she came up with a block late in the fourth, the Fever bench jumped like they'd just won the championship. Those are the moments casual fans don't always notice, but diehards do. And those are the moments that make a win like this stick. Because it wasn't just stars saving the day, it was every name on the roster, big or small, adding threads to the fabric. And the fans, oh, the fans. Imagine being one of the diehards who stuck it out through those lean years. Imagine the noise that erupted not only in the Gateway Center Arena when that final steal happened, but in living rooms across Indiana. Social media lit up with Fever fans typing in all caps, videos of people screaming, throwing their hands in the air, hugging strangers at bars. For once, the Fever weren't the punchline. They were the headline. And you could sense the pride swelling from a state that knows its basketball and doesn't hand out respect easily. Indiana basketball means toughness, tradition, and heart. And on this night, the Fever lived up to the state's DNA. And here's the beauty of it. This wasn't perfect basketball. It wasn't smooth or easy. It was messy, scratchy, and nerve-rattling. That's what makes it beautiful. Perfect teams can fall apart when things go wrong. But teams forged in fire, they thrive in it. Every injury, every bad whistle, every time a broadcaster wrote them off, they carried those scars right into the fight. And when it mattered, those scars became armor. You could see it in their eyes. We've already lived through the worst, so why would we fold now? But let's not kid ourselves. The story isn't finished. The Las Vegas Aces loom like a mountain. They are polished, seasoned, stacked with talent from top to bottom. They've been there, done that, lifted the trophy, and know exactly how to handle the spotlight. The Fever will be underdogs again, and the national conversation will probably tilt toward the Aces. But here's the secret: Indiana now holds. They know what belief feels like. They know how to silence a road crowd, how to weather storms, how to trust that anyone will rise when the game calls. And that kind of knowledge doesn't disappear when the ball goes up against Las Vegas. So as the Fever walk into the semifinals, they'll carry two things the Aces don't have: hunger and house money. Nobody thought they'd be here. Every step forward now is history. They weren't supposed to write. That freedom is dangerous for an opponent, because a team with nothing to lose, that's already beaten doubt, doesn't just play basketball. They play fearless. And fearless basketball? That's how dynasties get shaken. What if, years from now, we look back at this game not as a fluke, but as the night the Fever became something new? What if this is the moment that future players point to when they say, "That's when it all changed"? That's the magic of sports. You don't always realize you're witnessing a turning point until you're already living in the era it created. Maybe that's what Game 3 was. Not just a win, not just a steal, but the spark of a franchise reborn. So let the analysts debate. Let the doubters predict doom. For the Fever and their fans, the message is simple. Enjoy this. Remember it. Hold it close. Because whether the next series goes their way or not, nobody can take away what they did in Atlanta. They turned despair into destiny. They turned silence into celebration. They turned 10 years of waiting into one unforgettable night. And if you're watching this feeling your heart pound just remembering it, then you know the truth. The Indiana Fever aren't done. They've just begun.